there, and welcome to the Seven Figure Authorpreneur Podcast, where we empower authors with tools, resources, and inspiration to build prosperous book brands. OMG, guys, we have none other than Allysen Kerr, who is an award-winning entrepreneur, brand strategist, designer, and storyteller. She's also a published author. Allysen graduated from the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communication, where she learned the art of storytelling and developed a passion for design and online media. Welcome, 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 Allysen. How are you?
I am great, Octoryia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to speak with you and your audience today.
Listen, guys, I know my famous listen, but hear this one. We are going to be talking about how to build a brand through publishing. I know many of you out there have the questions, you have the concerns. You don't know where to start with the cover or start with colors or start with fonts or the why behind any of it. And today we hope to empower you with some knowledge that's rooted in evidence-based, researched information to really get you going in the right direction. You guys ready? All righty, then let's get started. Allysen, why don't you talk to us about your own publishing journey and building your own personal brand as an author?
Well, ironically, I have always loved to write, but I never thought about actually publishing anything that I ever wrote. I probably have 8 different things that I've started and never actually published any of them. However, during the pandemic, I had the opportunity to be a part of an anthology with 24 other entrepreneurs, and we got to tell our story. And for me, it was such a full circle moment because I remember as a little girl, the person that wanted to write and had all these really great fiction stories that I put together. And then here I am, fast forward however many years later, and I'm writing my own story. And it's about my business and it's about my journey and the struggles and the tears and the triumphs. And I really believe that building a brand really takes being able to pull in all of you and not just the shiny parts that everybody wants to see, but sometimes that the vulnerable part of you, the painful part of you that you can weave into your story and really, really help someone. So for me, being able to, I had to set the foundation first, right? I couldn't just come out with a book and say, hey, here are all the really cool things that I did, follow me. No, I had to become somebody worth following. And the way that I did that was going through my struggles, going through my test and trial, so to speak, and coming out on the other side to have a story worth telling. So I think that's the first thing that I grasp from all of this is that my journey in building a brand has given me a story worth telling.
About to throw my headset. Did you just say becoming someone worth following, building a story worth telling? Now, you got to elaborate on that thing. That was powerful.
Thank you. When I started doing this, as far as I guess I should tell people what I do. So I'm the CEO of Primal Elements. We are a branding and consulting agency that works with minority owned, women owned businesses to help them bend the culture. We help them do that by giving them the brand foundation that they need to tell their stories better so that they can create the impact that they want to see in the world. And so for me, it didn't start out with all of that. It started out with a 24-year-old Allysen who thought she was bad to the bone because she just graduated from one of the top universities in this, or the top university in the state. And her bachelor's degree was going to go off and be a publisher, a magazine publisher. And I found myself sitting in my manager's office and her telling me that she was letting me go. And I was like, wait, what? Hold on. That's not part of the plan. Let me roll back what the timeline and the plan was supposed to be. I was supposed to be telling you I was leaving 5 years from now. Here I am 11 months into this job and you're telling me that it's my time to go. And it was the catalyst of everything that I have today. And what to me started out as something that was really painful and difficult and defeating and humbling at the time. I've never been fired from anything in my life. I'm 24. You're 24 years solid. Like I have the rest of my life to be fired, not 2 years after graduating from college, right? So that became like the reason and the purpose for everything that I'm doing now. Cause I was like, I never want to be in that position again. I don't want anybody telling me that I'm not good enough to be a part of their company or organization ever again. I want to control my own future. Well, doing that meant that I had to become an entrepreneur, which I was terrified of. And you know how that goes. Usually the thing that you're scared of the most is the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And I spent probably about 6 weeks crying and praying and telling God, I don't want to do this. And Him telling me, well, you could, that's fine, but this is what we're doing. And when I finally decided to give in, all right, look, Lord, I got to put a fleece out here because I don't know what you want me to do. And I don't think this is you because this sounds crazy because it doesn't sound like anything I want to do. But if you do want me to do this, I need you to send me at least 2 friends who are looking for graphic design services. And that's what I was offering at the time. I just started out doing that. And lo and behold, I had 2 friends call me that week and only 2 friends. And they asked me if I was still doing that work on the side because I had started doing some design stuff for on the side in college. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I got my sign. I guess that's it. And it was again through that process of having to essentially in my mind, I felt like I lost everything. I felt like I lost my credibility, I lost my faith in myself because I was really hard on myself because I'm an achiever. I'm someone who works really hard and I accomplish. I may not be the A+ student with the stellar GPA, but I work for everything that I have. And so for me to have lost that job was very, very devastating. And so but I needed to go through that process. And I think that where a lot of people get lost in the sauce when it comes to building a brand is you think that everything is about the highlight reels. Everything is about all the shiny parts of your journey and your accomplishments and whatnot. And I realized as I was working with my clients, I'm like, nobody cares about all your accomplishments. Like you started out my bio that I'm an award-winning entrepreneur. I'm like, I hide away from that because I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, my award winning self is cool, but if I can't produce, nobody cares how many awards I have. If I don't have an interesting story that people can relate to and connect to, they won't care what my bio says. So I had to recognize that the things that the challenges that I went through to shape and mold me into the person that I am today were giving me the foundation for the brand that I've built and continuing to build today. And so fast forward several years later, and lots of ups and downs and hurdles in between. We've worked with over 300 clients. We have been able to help so many organizations create a foundation for success and build thriving brands and give a lot of our clients the platforms that they needed to now become the authors, to become their own storytellers, to become the impact and influencers that they see themselves as because they had the right foundation in the first place.
I don't know about y'all, but I was over here writing as many notes as I possibly could. And as you were speaking, and I've talked about brand foundation a lot of times with a lot of different people, but something stirred up in me when you said building the foundation. And as you were weaving that thought through the telling of your story, I began to think about what does an actual building foundation incorporate? When you think
Mhm.
about it, and I'm no constructor kind of person, it's messy. It's the dirt, it's the plumbing, it's all that deep hidden work, but without it, whatever you build upon it won't stand for long. Did I nail it?
Oh, you nailed it. You nailed it. You nailed it. Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, yeah, she's preaching right back to me. This is good. But yes, no, I'm so glad that you said that because that's something that I teach my clients all the time when it comes to building the proper foundation. You got to think about it like building a house or building a skyscraper. And that is that place. Like when you start to dig up the ground, and even the Bible talks about that, like breaking up the fallow ground, like you have to get through those top layers in order to get into the dirt, right? And so sometimes you have to break open. And for me, when I went through that hard place, that was me being broken open. That was me literally having to, of all the things that I thought my life was supposed to look like, the picture that I had painted for myself, whatever my idea and definition of success was, I had to let that go. And it happened multiple times throughout my journey. It's not just a one-time thing. It's going to happen over and over and over again because you as a person and whoever you're meant to be along this journey have to have the right foundation and be strong enough to support whatever vision God's giving you, right? So the deeper your foundation, the taller, the bigger your impact, right? So I tell people, I'm like, you think about building a house. When you're building like let's say a 2-story house, you only need a 2-foot foundation. That's like baby impact. That's okay, cool. You're going to be out here doing some small things. But if you're somebody that wants to have the impact of a skyscraper, like when you look at it in a skyscraper, you're like, oh my gosh, wow, this is amazing. It's so huge. It just overwhelms you because of the height and the amount of work that went into building that thing. A skyscraper's foundation has to be at least 52 feet deep in the opposite direction. The opposite direction. And now, if you're thinking about breaking up the earth, what it takes to get through those layers, like there's rock, there's boulders, there's all these things that, and some parts of that ground is not soft. Like it takes a lot of work to get through all of that. And it can take years for them to dig that foundation. So it's a process, right? To get you where you're supposed to be. A lot of people want to DIY slapstick their brands together. And I'm like, that's cool. That's your little 2-story house. That's only going to last you for about a year. And then you're going to have to completely dissolve the entire thing and start all over again to build something that'll support where you're trying to go for your brand.
Whoa. I'm trying to go back to the first powerful nugget you said and missed all of those powerful gets. You said something, you said that was my break open moment. And I'm sitting here thinking as an author now. Okay, so I thought my break open moment was me writing my content. What's the difference between the break open moment for author writing their content versus a break open moment for a author now building that content into a brand?
That's a really good question. So I think the difference is that when you are when you're building, when you're talking about writing your content, like anybody can write. You can put stuff down on a piece of paper, but when you're connected to whatever it is that you're writing and the stories that you're telling are helping you to either to up level your expertise or to showcase people how to also have their own breakthrough moments and whatever it is. Maybe it's helping them to figure out how to build a stronger team. Maybe you went through a process to do that, but your method for doing that is now creating this impact where they can actually take that information and replicate it and do it themselves within their own company, their own brands, their own community. That's where the difference is. If your content only impacts you and you get this cathartic moment of, hey, I feel so much better now that I did that. I healed. I'm good. Let me move on. But that's where it stops. And other people don't feel that release. Other people don't feel that they've gotten that aha moment from what you've written, then your content is not going to help your brand and it's not going to help them. You don't really have anything that's helping them. So I don't know if I'm saying that the way that I'm trying to it's in my head, but it's almost like you've been given this journey and this opportunity to create a ripple effect of impact. And if what you're doing cannot do that, then you don't have a brand worth following.
Wow. The ripple effect, guys. I love how you distinguish that breaking open when one is going through that journey of writing. That part's for you. But that next breaking, where now you're bringing all of that together and you're building a brand that for others to connect, receive, and be strengthened by, that is a whole nother level to the assignment. I like to say it this way, Allysen, that I tell authors that your writing journey is for you, but everything else that you create is for others.
Yeah.
And you have to consider the people as you're building that product that you're going to bring to the market. So let's continue down this pathway of thinking and speaking as it relates to brands. So I've had that breakthrough, I've had my personal aha moment. What's that first thing I need to do as I begin the process of now taking my content and building it into a brand?
Also, another great question. So, I think the very first step is you have to be able to sit back and look at what you have created and say, how is this going to help somebody else? What problem is this going to solve for someone else? Because what you might find is that you might have some additional offers that come out of that framework that you created, or whatever solutions you put in that book might be able to be something else you can sell and help you like earn more revenue in your business. But you have to be able to answer that first question. How is this going to help somebody else? I love the book Start With Why. I believe it's by Simon Sinek, if I'm correct. I might have that wrong, but either way, I love that book because it's the question I ask everyone for everything that they do. And I'm like, why? What's the purpose of this book? What's the purpose of this building this brand? What's the purpose of starting this business? Are you here? Why is this here? If you can't answer that question, then everything else that you do doesn't really matter, because now you're just building what we call a vanity brand, where you're just out here. Oh, let me check the boxes and say, I got awards. I'm an author. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a fill in the blank. I. But what I haven't seen from you is how you're doing is actually creating impact in the world and changing and shaping the culture. And so, whatever you're putting together for people as an author doesn't have the impact on that level, then you need to go back and do some more work. And I'm not talking about people just coming and be like, oh my gosh, Authorpreneur, your book was so amazing. Like, it just brought me to tears. That's cool. They had a moment for themselves. But I'm talking about, did whatever tips or resources you shared, were they able to implement that? Were they able to use it in a way to help them have their own breakthrough moments in their business or in their communities, whatever the audience is for? Is it going to be able to create impact there? And so if you can't break down like if your book content, the story that you're telling doesn't allow for that to happen, then it's not really going to have that impact that you're looking for.
You kept going and really massaging this idea of how it sounds like we're going even back to the some of the foundational things you spoke about, that our first break out is personal. It's our personal aha. It's our moment. And then there's
Mm.
that next one that we use to help others break through. So what I gathered was that we should not be building a brand for a person to have a moment, but we should be building a brand that will have an impact
Yes.
on people. And that is so huge. Even when I think about when we have conversations with authors about designing their cover, selecting their fonts, selecting their imagery, the positioning of it all. Guys, you got to begin to think from what Allysen is saying. Are you doing that because you want them to have a moment that makes them pick up that book from just pure emotions? Or do you want for them to have a desire for an impact that's perceived based off of what you have created and organized together? That is such a profound way of thinking. Now, how does all of that translate into actually developing that first element of one's brand as an author, which would be that book cover?
So I've learned in my journey of writing, content is king. The content is what guides everything. So even the book cover, and some people do it backwards where they're like, oh, I have this idea. Here's my logo. Here's my book cover. I'm like, okay, that's cool. What's your book about? Tell me, what is the story that you're trying to tell? Ultimately, what impact do you want it to have? And so when we ask that impact question, then I can say, okay, well, and then also who? So it's a where, what, why, who situation. Like, who do you want to impact? What impact do you want this to have? Why are you wanting to write this book in the first place? When you answer those questions, then we can get to what the visuals and aesthetics need to look like. So when we're building brands with our clients, we walk them through that same exact process. And now I can see, okay, well, Octoryia, she's not just trying to write a book. She wants to reach like 7-figure plus entrepreneurs. She wants to reach people who are influencers, they're change makers, they're change agents, now I can see all of that. And I'm like, okay, visually, we got to create a book that's going to appeal to that audience. Because if you're just going to put together some book or ask somebody on Fiverr to create something for you and it doesn't connect, it's not able to do that, then those 7-figure plus influencers, impact makers, change makers that you're trying to reach are not going to pick it up because it doesn't appeal to them. So you have to create something that still reflects the audience that you're trying to serve and the people that you want to reach. So you have to be very intentional about this font. You have to be very intentional about the colors. And not only that, but it also has to look like you, right? So you can't just come out here with a book and design something that has no connection to who you are, your personality, your voice, your tone, the way that you would say things. So some people go on the complete opposite spectrum where they're like, this is what I've seen on the market. This is what other people are doing. you're not other people. You're you. You have to brand your book around you. And not, let me not say like all of you, because some people put too much of themselves into their visuals for their book covers and designs, but it's got to be a good balance. Like I say, the mix is like 25% you, 75% your audience that you're actually trying to reach. And there's a way to do that effectively. It's all about posturing. So if you look at some of the top authors in the world, they're able to sell bestseller level because their brands are, they have the foundation for it, but their books, whenever they come out with something, you don't even have to think twice about it. You know that this is Gary Vee's new whatever. Like this is, you have all these other, Tony Robbins just came out with another book. You don't even have to think about it. Oh, there it is. I saw it out the corner of my eye and I already knew that this was a Tony Robbins book, or already knew that this was by Sarah Jakes Roberts. Like I know because I've seen their brand, they've done the job of telling me who they are and consistently showing up that way. And now when they write a book or they put something, I don't even have to think twice about it. If you think about it, TD Jakes, his signature for all his books is the same font every single time. He never changes it. Never. So I don't have to think twice in my mind that this is a TD Jakes books because it looks the same every single time. The cover might be different as far as the visuals, his photos, the colors might be a little bit different, but it's still got that same TD Jakes serif font that he uses on every book that he's ever published. So that is how he's established himself in the book publishing world and created a brand within that space so that people know exactly that it's him. They don't have to think about it twice. Oh, TJ's got a new book. Let me go see what it is. Cool. Crushing
Yeah, um, it's so good because even this last one he did, I think it's Undisrupted or
it. Disruptors, I think it's called.
Disruptive Thinking. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Same situation as you shared. And what you said that really hit me amidst all that you shared really hit me. I summed it up in this way that we should be developing a work of art through our cover that appeals to someone's potential and not just their
Mhm.
pain.
Exactly.
That
You
thing
said
hit me. I
you
was
needed to
like,
see that.
when you think about it,
Yeah.
especially nonfiction authors, it is absolutely, it's more innate for us to begin to describe things that resonate with the pain or where a person is. But if you're going to give them a moment, yeah, do that, as you said. But if you're talking about impact, you've got to build something that embodies speaking to their potential, speaking to a deep desire, a dream, a
Mhm.
goal, a vision for themselves, seeing themselves whole, healed, healthy. And they've got to want to see it, which will cause them to pick that book up. Oh
Right.
my goodness, that is so good, guys. I hope you are getting it. Yes, we've got great stories. Yes, they are tear jerkers. But at the end of the day, why, as Allison's asked, why are you writing the book? Are you writing a book to cause more moments of tears and pain and rehashing things that aren't going to progress them? Or are you speaking to a potential for them to get beyond it, move forward, get well, begin to prosper in their lives? And that is what she's speaking about as a part of that foundation for brand building. I am just like, golly, I can't with this is so stinking good. As we're beginning to round our interview out, Allison, I want to talk more about you said that when you think about some of the authors that have consistently delivered best-selling style content and brands that people consume and expect to consume as it's coming out. Many of our authors don't find that they can learn from Michelle Obama or Tony Robinson or TD Jakes because they feel that they have an unfair advantage with a huge following and such a well-known name. How can you learn from people you don't share the same level of influence with and still learn from how they're doing what they do well in branding as an author?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question because I use those examples all the time. And I tell people it's not about trying to mimic their impact because they earned that. You haven't earned that yet. You're still working through that. But what you can see if you follow them long enough is a formula for what they've done to create that brand and create that influence and to earn people's respect and follows. So I believe that if you're going to ask people to give you money for anything, you have to be able to have some level of consistency in your brand. And whether that consistency comes from the service that you provide or the results that you provide or the time that you spend with people have to know that they can trust you, right? So that's the first and foremost thing. If you don't have any followers at all, and you're trying to think that a book is going to help you get that following, you're not correct. You got to do some more foundational work first to be able to get to that level and continue to build that. And I tell people, don't use these other individuals as a method for how to build your brand and influence. It's about following their formula for consistency. So one of my favorite examples is Marshawn Evans Daniels. She has a very phenomenal story. And what I've done is watched her over the years and how she's built her brand. And it's always about the way that she shows up and who the information that she provides people and her genuineness in that. She's consistent in those three areas. So she earned my trust. She earned my respect and my follow on pretty much anything that she does, and my email. That's like the gold right there. You can get somebody to sign up for your email newsletter. And part of that was because she is someone that I believe is also greatly connected to her purpose. And I think that's something that people overlook when it comes to building a brand, when it comes to being a person of influence, is how is this tied back to your purpose? And are you living out in that purpose? And sometimes you have to really crawl before you can walk. And you have to go through that journey of building something that is going to allow you to open up a space where you can have a voice in people's ear and be that voice and earn their follow, earn their trust to buy from you. So when I look at her, I see somebody that's done that, and she has a social proof, 7-figure plus earning entrepreneur, probably multimillionaire at this point. She's got the bag. She has one book that she's published, not one, that she's had several books that she's published, but this last one that she came out with, Believe Bigger, that book was like it was a story of her breaking. Like, she's written other stuff. Like, it was Skirts in the Boardroom. Like, she's written other books that was like, cool, this is great. Like, tips for how you can show up in these spaces where women of color are not really showing up. And that's great. But then when she got to like writing about like the core of who she is and how she like helps people to reinvent themselves and all of that, like that's where her influence really took off. That's where things blew up. So I really think that people have to, like, when you're thinking about writing a book, you have to think back about how this book and this piece is connected to your purpose. It's connected to your influence and like how you're wired to show up in the world. And so if you can't check the boxes on those things and say, yeah, this book is actually, I'm walking in my purpose by writing this book. The information that I am sharing in this book is helping me to walk in my purpose. Then you're probably not ready to write the book yet. You're probably not ready to be that author of influence. You can write a book, it's just not going to have the impact that you want. So I think that first, like I said, you have to, if you're going to look at these other examples, you got to look at their formula for success. And a lot of that has to do with consistency. Are you consistently showing up in the spaces where you want to have impact? Social media, in your community, wherever that is. Again, have you earned the right to have people follow you? And so that's one thing. The second thing is that you have to be able to listen to, you can't do everything that everybody's doing. Like, you have to be able to figure out what actually works well for your brand, for your voice. And so if you're not somebody that does reels, then don't do it just because everybody else is doing it and it sounds cool. If you're not somebody that likes to be on camera all the time, then don't do that. You have to show up as your authentic self. And so I think that's the other part that people miss.
I almost couldn't keep up. My God. First of all, you had me at they earned it. Because it can we can get in our heads, and I'll just embody our listeners. We can get in our head and become frustrated, hate on, question from a negative perspective other people and just associate it with X, Y, and Z. But the
Mhm.
reality is they did earn it. And we can learn from it. Even though we may not start where they are, we can learn how to get to our next level and the next
Mhm.
level and the next level. And I'm just so thankful that you shared. Look for the formulas, guys. Look for what they're doing. What are they consistently bringing to the market that's causing people to consume them? One person I love, love, love is Tabitha Brown.
Mm.
If she's from seasoning to cutting, like kitchen stuff to hair supplies, I don't even know everything she does, but I'm much like you with the other person. I'm about following it. I was one of those ones that showed up to Target when she had her debut. I just love her. I have not even used the cutting board that I bought yet, but I'm so supportive and respect what this woman who used to be an Uber driver has become and what she embodies. And there is a formula. She gonna be Auntie Tab on
Hmm.
anything she brings, whether it's
Exactly.
for whoever. She is Auntie Tab, and you look for that, and it's almost like, well, if Auntie Tab is saying it's good, it's gold. I'm gonna follow it. She has built that brand, even when she was in that car driving Uber, giving vegan reviews. She was Auntie Tab already. So thank you so much, Allysen. I could talk to you for hours, but we are at our last about 60 seconds. I am going to allow you to share how our listeners can continue to grow and on this topic of branding with you.
Absolutely. So we can be found at primalelements.com, and all of our social media is Go Primal or at Grow Primal. I would love to chat with you there and talk to you about your brands. And so if there's any other ways that we can help you make sure that you have the foundation that you need, then we would love to do that. So thank you for having us.
All right, guys, you heard it. Let's get connected and continue to build solid foundations as authors with our brands. Amen and amen. Okay, guys, now it's time to implement. It's time to execute, and it's time to prosper. Until next time.